I never thought I'd be the guy who gets cheated on. I mean, I'm a decent husband, right? I work hard, come home on time, and make dinner sometimes. My wife, Jennifer, and I had a solid 10 years together, or so I thought. But you know that saying about how you can't see the forest for the trees? Yeah, well, I was lost deep in that forest, blind to the signs. When Jennifer first started her book club, I thought it was a cute little hobby. She had these friends she'd gotten close to over the last couple of years, and they would meet once a week. I'd come home to find her nestled on the couch, surrounded by a pile of novels, discussing plots and characters like she was in some literary debate. But I started noticing things. First off, she'd come home later and later each week. Then she'd have this weird lipstick on, bright red, not the shade she usually wore. I'd ask about it and she'd roll her eyes, muttering about how it was just a book club thing. Just friends, she said. Still, I let it slide at first. Maybe she just needed a little more girl time. But then there were the texts. I'd see her phone buzzing nonstop during those nights. One time I cheekily asked if she was texting the author of the book they were reading. She laughed it off, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of guilt. I shrugged it off until I didn't. The real punch to the gut came one Thursday evening. I was at home, flipping through TV channels, waiting for Jennifer to come back. She was supposed to be at a book club meeting. As I was zoning out, something in the back of my mind urged me to check her phone. I mean, I knew it was wrong, but curiosity got the better of me. I unlocked her phone and my heart dropped. There it was, a text thread that made my stomach churn. Can't wait to see you tonight, read one message. Another text had a smiling emoji, and I swear I could hear the laughter echoing in my head. The name was saved as Jack, and I didn't recognize it at all. I felt nauseous as I scrolled through the messages, realizing this Jack was not just a friend. They were sending heart emojis and talking about meeting up. My blood ran cold. When she finally came home, I was waiting for her, standing by the door with her phone in my hand. The moment she walked in, I knew I had to confront her. "Who's Jack?" I demanded, my voice shaky but steady. Her expression shifted from surprise to something almost defiant. "What are you talking about?" she asked, trying to play innocent. But I waved her phone in front of her like it was evidence in a courtroom. Who the hell is Jack?" Suddenly she was defensive, arms crossed over her chest like a barricade. "It's nothing, just a friend from the book club," she snapped, her voice dripping with annoyance. "You're being ridiculous." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ridiculous? You're having an affair, Jennifer," I shouted, feeling my heart pound against my ribcage. For a brief moment she looked cornered, and then it was like a switch flipped. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're being paranoid." She was angry now, her eyes flashing with indignation. The nerve! I felt anger swelling inside me. Hot and furious. "I see the text, Jen. This isn't just paranoia." She rolled her eyes, and that was it for me. I was fighting for my relationship, and she was treating it like a joke. "You're just insecure," she shot back. "Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of being so consumed with work." Her excuses hit me like a slap. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, but it was quickly replaced by a righteous fury. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. I needed to think hard about what to do next. As I walked away, my mind was racing. I could feel the betrayal deep in my heart, and the weight of it was suffocating. I had to find a way to deal with this, but how? I had never imagined that my wife, the woman I had shared my life with, could betray me like this. I wasn't just going to let it slide. No, I needed a plan. I needed revenge. And that's when the idea started to take shape. After that confrontation, I felt like a bomb had gone off in my life. Jennifer and I didn't talk much for a few days. The silence between us was thick with tension. It was heavy, almost suffocating, and I found myself replaying our argument over and over in my mind. I was angry, yes, but I was also heartbroken. How could she do this to me? What had I missed? I spent hours trying to piece together the puzzle. Jennifer had always been meticulous about her social life, and I had trusted her completely. But now, looking back, it seemed like there were signs everywhere. Little things that I had chalked up to just life were now flashing in neon. The late nights, the mysterious texts, the sudden interest in personal fitness. I even recalled a couple of times when she'd come home smelling like a different cologne. I'd brushed it off as a trivial detail then, but everything suddenly made sense, or rather, didn't. I needed evidence, something concrete, so I decided to do a little digging. I wasn't proud of it, but in that moment I felt justified. I spent the next few nights covertly tracking her movements, hiding in the shadows, and watching her interactions. It felt like I was in a terrible spy movie, but the reality was far more painful. I didn't want to be this person, but I had been pushed to the edge. One Saturday evening, I pretended to go out for groceries. Instead, I parked a couple of blocks away from the cafe where Jennifer and her book club friends usually met. I wanted to see if she'd meet up with Jack after their usual gatherings. Sure enough, I watched her walk out with a group of women, laughing and chatting. My heart sank when I spotted Jack leaning against a car waiting for her. He was tall, athletic, with a charming smile that could light up a room. Of course, she'd be attracted to him. I felt my stomach churn and I almost turned back. I didn't want to see this. But I stayed, hidden in my car, watching as Jennifer approached him. They exchanged smiles and my fists clenched. This was it, the undeniable evidence I was looking for. I watched them hug, and my heart shattered into a million pieces as they leaned in together, sharing laughter that felt like daggers in my heart. I couldn't hear what was being said, but the body language spoke volumes. It was intimate, easy, and full of joy. That was the moment I decided I had to act. I could no longer be passive. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. I wanted her to understand that I would not be the doormat she could walk over. The rage bubbled inside me and I felt a surge of determination. I returned home, my mind racing with plans. The next step was to confront her again, but this time with evidence she couldn't deny. I needed to catch her in the act, or at least make her realize that I knew exactly what was going on. I set a trap, planning to play along with her narrative while gathering proof of her deceit. The following week, I acted as if everything was normal. I asked her about her book club nights, feigning interest while secretly plotting my next moves. I wanted to keep her distracted, give her enough rope to hang herself. When she casually mentioned going out with her friends again, I pretended to be supportive, even offering to help her pick an outfit. I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes, but she quickly hid it behind a facade of enthusiasm. "Thanks, honey. I want to look nice tonight," she said, her smile almost too bright. After she left, I felt a mix of triumph and dread. I had set the stage, but what would happen next? I had no idea how much this would spiral out of control. That night I waited. Patience was my ally now. I decided to set up a camera in a discreet spot in our living room, the one place I knew she'd come back to after her book club meetings. I needed to capture her on tape, sharing her secrets, her lies. I wanted proof of the betrayal I had discovered, a record of the woman who had chosen to break my heart. The next few nights were agonizing. I barely slept, my mind racing with thoughts of Jennifer and Jack. I replayed the conversations I had overheard in my head, each one fueling the fire of my anger. I wondered how she could be so cold, so heartless. Didn't she realize that her actions would tear our lives apart? The following week, I finally got what I was waiting for. I set the camera and Jennifer didn't suspect a thing. I could hardly believe my luck when just 2 nights later she came home later than usual, her laughter echoing through the hallway. She walked into the living room and I could barely contain my rage as I listened to her. She was talking to Jack on the phone, and the intimacy in her voice made my blood boil. "Can't wait to see you again," she said, her tone sultry and inviting. "I miss you so much." Those words cut deeper than anything else. I was ready to explode, but I held myself together, knowing that soon enough I would unleash the fury that had been simmering inside me. I wanted her to feel every ounce of pain that I was experiencing. I didn't have to wait long for the confrontation. My revenge was coming, and I was going to make sure it was unforgettable. With the phone call recorded and my emotions at a boiling point, the day of reckoning was finally upon me. I felt a mix of dread and excitement as I planned the upcoming confrontation. I wanted to catch Jennifer completely off guard when I revealed what I knew. I wouldn't just confront her with accusations. I would present her with undeniable evidence of her infidelity. It was time for her to face the reality of what she had done. The next evening I made dinner, something I hadn't done in weeks. I wanted everything to feel normal, casual, almost ordinary. I cooked her favorite dish, hopping to create an atmosphere that would soften her defenses. Little did she know, I was setting the stage for the most intense discussion of our lives. When she walked through the door, her eyes lit up as she took in the aromas wafting from the kitchen. "Wow, babe, this smells amazing," she exclaimed, a genuine smile spreading across her face. For a moment I felt a flicker of the love we once shared, but then I remembered the hurt and betrayal. I pushed those feelings aside. I needed to stay focused. As we sat down for dinner, I engaged her in small talk, keeping things light as I watched her eat. She chatted about her day, oblivious to the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. My heart raced as I mentally prepared myself for what was about to happen. I was on the precipice of a storm and I could feel the wind shifting. After dinner, I casually suggested we move to the living room. "I want to show you something," I said, trying to keep my tone even. Her brow furrowed slightly, but she followed me, her curiosity piqued. I gestured toward the couch and she took a seat, glancing around the room as if sensing something was off. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I just wanted to talk about your book club," I said, watching her closely. The color drained from her face as she realized I wasn't just being friendly. I reached for the remote and pulled up the footage from the hidden camera. I could see her face change as the recording started playing. "Can't wait to see you again. I miss you so much," echoed through the room, her own voice taunting her. I watched as the realization hit her like a freight train. Her eyes widened and the defiance she'd worn like armor crumbled away. "Where did you get that?" she demanded, her voice shaky. I could sense the panic rising in her, and it fueled my resolve. "Does it even matter where I got it? You were caught, Jennifer. You've been lying to me, betraying me with this guy, Jack. I can't believe you do this." My heart raced as I let the anger spill out. She tried to regain her composure, but it was pathetic. "It's not what it looks like. I was just having fun with friends. You're twisting everything." She attempted, her voice rising defensively. "Fun? Is that what you call it? You're flirting with another man, talking about missing him, and you think I'm just supposed to sit here and believe your lies." I shot back, my voice firm. Tears began to form in her eyes, and I could see the struggle within her. She wanted to fight, but the evidence was too damning. "I didn't mean it like that," she pleaded, now sounding desperate. "You don't understand. Things have been so boring between us. I was looking for excitement." "Excitement? You think that cheating is the answer to our problems?" I snapped, incredulous. "You think you can just throw away everything we've built together for a fling?" My heart was heavy as I spoke, but the anger propelled me forward. "Please, just let me explain," she cried, her voice cracking. I shook my head. "You've said enough. You've made your choices, and now you're going to face the consequences." I watched as her entire demeanor crumbled. The strong woman who had once held her head high was now reduced to a sobbing mess. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to hurt you. I just got caught up in it all." "Caught up in what?" "A fantasy, a moment of weakness," I said, bitterness creeping into my voice. "This isn't just a mistake, this is betrayal." She fell silent, staring at the ground, unable to meet my gaze. I could see the guilt washing over her, but it didn't ease the pain I felt. I had poured my heart into this marriage, and she had thrown it away like it meant nothing. "I don't know what to do," she finally whispered, her voice small and defeated. "Neither do I admitted, the weight of the situation crashing down on me. "But I can't keep pretending everything is okay. I'm hurt, and I don't know if I can even look at you the same way again." The room was filled with a heavy silence as we both processed the enormity of our situation. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. This wasn't how I envisioned my life or my marriage. I had loved her, trusted her, and now that trust was shattered. I knew I had to make a decision, but for now, I just needed to breathe and think. I couldn't keep doing this in limbo, and it was time to figure out what my next steps would be. All I knew was that I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. I needed time, and she needed to understand the gravity of her choices. As I walked away to collect my thoughts, I could hear her sobs echoing in the empty space we used to share. This was just the beginning of a long road ahead, but I was determined to reclaim my life, whatever that might look like now. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in our home was suffocating. It was like walking through a minefield. Every step I took felt like it could trigger an explosion. I had confronted Jennifer, but now I faced the daunting task of deciding what to do with this shattered relationship. I felt like I was floating in limbo, caught between anger and sadness, and I didn't want to make any rash decisions. Jennifer was desperate to fix things. She followed me around the house, trying to engage me in conversations about our marriage, about us. But every time she opened her mouth, I felt a bitter taste in my mouth, a mix of betrayal and heartbreak. She would cry, plead for forgiveness, and promise that it would never happen again, but how could I trust her? How could I believe anything she said after what she had done? One evening, she approached me while I was sitting in the living room, trying to distract myself with some mindless television. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft and tentative. I glanced at her, taking in the tear-streaked cheeks and the defeated demeanor. "Talk about what?" I replied, my tone colder than I intended. I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I couldn't care less. I was still reeling from the betrayal. "About us, about what happened. I know I messed up," she began, but I cut her off. "Yeah, you did mess up. You destroyed trust, Jen. You think a few tears and some apologies are going to fix this?" I shot back, unable to hide my anger. "Please, just let me explain. I got caught up in everything, and I didn't mean for it to go this far," she pleaded. "Explain what?" "How you chose to spend your time with another man instead of working through our problems. How you decided to throw away a decade together for some excitement." I felt the rage bubbling up again, and I leaned forward, glaring at her. She opened her mouth to respond, but the words failed her. Instead, she sat down next to me, her shoulders trembling. I watched her struggle for composure, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But it vanished quickly. I couldn't allow myself to feel sorry for her, not now. "I don't want to lose you, Alex," she said softly, her eyes pleading with me. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. I will. Go to counseling, I'll stop seeing Jack, I swear, just give me a chance." I shook my head, trying to shove down the conflicting emotions that swirled within me. "A chance? You've had your chances, Jennifer. I'm not sure I can ever look at you the same way again. Please don't say that. I love you. I made a mistake and I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking straight," she cried. Love. That word hung in the air and I nearly choked on it. Did she even know what love meant? Could she truly say that with the same sincerity that had once fueled our bond? I wanted to scream at her, to let all my pent-up frustration explode, but instead I felt the tears prick at my eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've shattered everything we built, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again." "I'll do anything, Alex. I'll prove it to you. Just don't give up on us," she begged, reaching for my hand. I flinched, pulling away from her touch. "I need time. I can't just jump back into this like nothing happened," I replied, standing up and walking away from her. I needed space, air, a break from the emotional roller coaster. The next few days were a blur of awkward silence and heavy glances. I spent hours away from home, going for long drives or sitting in a cafe, trying to process everything. I felt like I was living in a fog, and I desperately needed clarity. I talked to friends about what had happened, and their reactions varied from shock to anger on my behalf. Some urged me to give Jennifer another chance, citing our long history together. Others suggested that maybe it was time to cut my losses and move on. I was torn. I didn't want to be the guy who threw away a decade of memories, but I also didn't want to be a fool, letting someone walk all over me. I needed to take action. One night, after another tense dinner where we barely spoke, I decided to confront the reality of my situation. I needed to take a stand, to show Jennifer that I wouldn't tolerate her betrayal any longer. I grabbed my laptop and began researching divorce lawyers, scrolling through websites while my heart raced. But as I did, a wave of sadness washed over me. This wasn't the path I had envisioned for my life. I had always imagined growing old with Jennifer, building a future together. And yet, here I was, contemplating the possibility of a life without her. I closed my laptop, feeling overwhelmed. Instead of making any rash decisions, I realized I needed to communicate my feelings clearly to Jennifer. I had to lay out my expectations, and if she truly wanted to mend our marriage, she had better be ready for the long haul. The next evening, I sat her down once more. "We need to talk," I started. "I know things are rough right now, but I want to fix us," she said, her voice hopeful. "I'm not sure you understand what that means," I replied, my tone firm. "It's not enough to just promise to be better. You have to earn back my trust, and that takes time and effort." "I'll do anything, I swear," she said, sincerity shining through her eyes. "Okay, then let's start with counseling," I suggested. "I want to see that you're serious about this and willing to put in the work. If you really want to save our marriage, prove it." "I will," she promised, her voice filled with determination. "I'll do everything I can." "Good. But understand this, if you're not committed to making changes, then I will have to consider moving on." The gravity of my words hung in the air. I was ready to take a step forward, but I was also prepared to walk away if she didn't meet me halfway. The ball was now in her court, and I hoped with everything in me that she would choose to fight for us. Because I wasn't ready to give up just yet, but I wouldn't be a victim again either. As I laid in bed that night, I felt a sense of resolution. I couldn't predict what the future would hold, but I was ready to navigate the rocky path ahead. It would be a long journey, but it was one I was willing to embark on for the sake of love, even if it had been tarnished. In the weeks that followed, I felt like I was walking a tightrope. The delicate balance between hope and despair hung over me, and every day felt like a new test of my resolve. Jennifer had started attending therapy sessions, both individually and together, and I could see she was genuinely trying. She would come home with notes from her meetings, eager to share her insights, and while part of me appreciated her efforts, another part remained guarded. I was still hurt and deeply skeptical. It felt like I was watching a performance, and I was the harshest critic in the audience. She would pour her heart out about her mistakes, how she had let herself get swept away in a whirlwind of excitement. But how could I know if this newfound introspection was genuine? Or was it just another act to regain my trust? One evening, as we sat together on the couch, Jennifer broached a topic she had been avoiding: Jack. It was a delicate conversation, but I knew we couldn't continue to dance around the elephant in the room. "I think it's important to talk about him," she said, her voice steady but uncertain. "I need you to understand that it was never about him. It was about me and what I was missing in my life." I turned to look at her, trying to gauge her sincerity. "So you think it was just a way to fill a void? You didn't care about how it would hurt me?" My voice was laced with skepticism. "No, I didn't think it would go as far as it did. I just wanted to feel alive again," she admitted, her eyes glistening with tears. "But I see now how selfish I was. I'm sorry, Alex. I wish I could take it all back." I took a deep breath, my emotions swirling inside me. "You need to understand, Jennifer, that you're going to have to work hard to regain my trust. It won't happen overnight." "I know," she replied earnestly. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I will cut ties with him completely. I swear." I believed her for the moment, but the lingering doubts hung in the air like a storm cloud, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much longer journey. As we continued with our counseling sessions, I started to see the cracks in the facade of our relationship, but I also noticed some glimmers of hope. Slowly, we began to reconnect in ways I hadn't expected. We started going for long walks together, sharing our thoughts and fears. We watch movies and play games like we used to. For brief moments, I could almost forget the pain she had caused. But then, like a flash of lightning, the memories of her betrayal would strike me back to reality, and I'd feel the weight of everything we were still facing. One evening, after a particularly deep conversation about our future, I lay awake in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling. I was exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, and I couldn't help but think about what it would take for me to truly forgive her. I needed to know if she was willing to do the hard work, not just in therapy, but in rebuilding the trust that she had shattered. It was during one of our therapy sessions that I made a bold suggestion. "Maybe we should consider a trial separation," I said, my heart racing as I spoke the words. "I need time to really think about what I want and whether I can forgive you, and maybe you need time to reflect on what you truly want." Jennifer's face fell, a mix of fear and sadness washing over her. "Are you serious? Do you really think that's the answer?" she asked, her voice tinged with desperation. "Maybe it is. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when I'm still carrying this weight, I replied, feeling both terrified and liberated by my honesty. I don't want to be apart from you. I want to stay together and work through this. I love you, Alex, she exclaimed, her voice cracking with emotion. I know, but love isn't always enough to fix what's broken. I think we need space to breathe and figure things out, I explained, my heart heavy. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. If that's what you think is best, then I'll respect your decision. But it doesn't mean I'll stop fighting for us, she promised, her determination shining through her tears. And so it was decided. We agreed to separate for a month while continuing our therapy sessions individually. I moved into a small apartment nearby, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. It was a strange feeling, leaving the home we had built together, yet I also felt a sense of freedom. As I settled into my new routine, I took time to reflect on everything that had happened. I sought comfort in my friends and family, leaning on their support as I navigated this uncharted territory. I began to focus on myself, rediscovering hobbies and interests that I had set aside over the years. I took long runs, read novels, and even started cooking for myself again. But between the moments of clarity came the moments of doubt. I missed Jennifer. I missed our conversations, our laughter, and even the mundane routines of our daily lives. The longing for connection gnawed at me, and I often found myself second-guessing my decision. There were nights when I lay in bed, replaying memories of our happier times. I would think about our wedding day, the promises we made to each other, and the life we envisioned together. But then I'd remember the hurt, the betrayal, and the way she had turned to someone else when things got tough. The anger and sadness would bubble back to the surface, and I'd remind myself why I needed this time apart. A month passed slowly, but it gave me the space I needed to think. I knew that soon I would have to face the decision of whether to give Jennifer another chance or to walk away for good. I realized that whatever I chose, it had to be based on what was best for both of us. As the date of our next therapy session approached, I felt a storm of emotions swirling within me. I was nervous, anxious, and yet strangely hopeful. I had done a lot of soul-searching during this time, and I was ready to confront my feelings head-on. In that moment, I resolved to be honest, not just with Jennifer, but with myself. I would have to lay it all on the table, the love, the hurt, the doubts, and the desires for the future. It was time to decide if we could rebuild what had been broken or if it was time to let go. The next session would change everything, and I was ready to face it, whatever the outcome might be. The day of our therapy session arrived, and I felt a whirlwind of emotions churning inside me. I woke up early, packing around my apartment as I mentally prepared for what lay ahead. This was the moment I had been building toward, a chance to lay everything bare and make a decision about our future. When I arrived at the therapist's office, I took a deep breath, trying to steady the racing thoughts in my mind. Jennifer was already there, her face a mask of apprehension and hope. As soon as we sat down, the therapist welcomed us and encouraged us to express our feelings openly. I've been doing a lot of thinking during this past month, I began, meeting Jennifer's gaze. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the anticipation in her eyes, and I need to be honest about where I stand. Jennifer nodded, her eyes wide and attentive. She seemed on the verge of tears, but I knew this was part of the process. I took another deep breath and continued. You hurt me deeply, Jennifer. What you did shattered my trust, and I've spent this month trying to understand if I can ever truly forgive you. She opened her mouth to speak, but the therapist gently placed a hand on her arm, signaling her to hold off until I finished. I pressed on. I miss you and I miss us, but I can't overlook the fact that you chose to betray me. I need to know that you understand the gravity of your actions and that you're committed to doing the work to heal this rift. I do understand, she said, her voice trembling. I've been working to change, to understand why I made those choices. I want to earn back your trust, and I will do whatever it takes. I appreciate you saying that, I replied, my heart aching at the sight of her vulnerability. But it's going to take more than words. I need to see real change over time. I need to feel secure in our relationship again. I promise I'll show you, she insisted, her eyes welling with tears. I never wanted to hurt you. I got lost, but I want to find my way back to you. "I love you, Alex. I want this marriage to work." Hearing her say those words was both comforting and terrifying. I could still feel the weight of the betrayal settle on my chest, but there was something about her sincerity that tugged at me. "Love is important, but it's not the only thing that matters," I said, my voice steady. "We need to work on rebuilding trust, and that's going to take time. It's going to be hard, and I can't promise that I won't have doubts." "I understand that," she replied, a fresh wave of tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm prepared for that. I just want the chance to show you that I can be better." The therapist interjected, guiding us through the conversation. "It's clear that both of you care deeply for each other. The next steps will require commitment from both sides. Trust can be rebuilt, but it requires consistent actions over time. Are you both willing to commit to that?" I glanced at Jennifer, seeing the determination in her expression. I thought about the love we had shared and the years we had invested in one another. I thought about the laughter, the memories, and the dreams we had built together. I still felt the anger, the hurt, but the possibility of healing flickered in front of me like a candle in the dark. "I want to try," I finally said, my voice steady but soft. "But it needs to be clear that this isn't just a quick fix. It's a long process, and I need us both to be fully committed." Jennifer nodded eagerly, relief washing over her face. "I'm committed, Alex. I will put in the work. I want us to be happy again." The next hour was filled with discussions about rebuilding trust, setting boundaries, and establishing open communication. We talked about what we both needed moving forward, and I began to feel a sense of renewed hope. It wouldn't be easy, but it felt like we were finally starting to mend the rift that had torn us apart. As the session came to a close, I felt lighter. We had laid everything out on the table, and while the road ahead would be filled with challenges, I was ready to start walking it with Jennifer by my side. We left the office hand in hand, both of us knowing that we had a long way to go. As we stepped into the daylight, I could feel the warmth of the sun on my face. There was still a long path ahead, but for the first time in a while, I could see a glimmer of what might lie at the end of that path, a chance to rebuild what we had lost, to forge a new future together. In the months that followed, we put in the work. We went to therapy, communicated openly about our feelings, and slowly began to heal. It wasn't a smooth journey. We faced setbacks and difficult conversations. There were moments of uncertainty when I questioned whether we could truly move past her betrayal. But with each passing day, I saw Jennifer's commitment to our relationship grow stronger. She actively worked on herself and our marriage, and I began to feel like I could trust her again. Bit by bit, we started to rediscover the love that had brought us together in the first place. Reflection became a regular part of our lives. I learned how to voice my feelings and needs without fear, and she learned how to listen and be accountable for her actions. It was challenging, but I was determined not to give up on us. The experience taught me a lot about love, trust, and resilience. It showed me that even in the face of betrayal, there is hope for healing if both partners are willing to fight for it. I learned to cherish the small moments, to communicate openly, and to be vulnerable. In the end, we weren't the same couple we had been before. We had evolved, learned, and grown stronger through adversity. It wasn't easy, but we were building something new, something more profound and meaningful. In the face of betrayal, love can be tested, but it can also emerge stronger than before. And as we walked hand in hand, I knew that we were on the right path.